This is the video for my trip to northern Italy, Milan, Lake Garda, and Verona. Here's the Duomo on Saturday morning after I arrived. Very nice. Cloudy day, but still very pretty in the piazza. And then over to the left is a place called the Galleria, which was kind of a mall. I mostly walked around the Duomo at this time, enjoying its complexity. There weren't many people around at this time, which was very nice. After I was done there, I tried to get a ticket, but they were booked for Saturday, so I had to wait till Sunday. It started to rain, and I went into the museum plaza and then came back out after it stopped, and then went through the Galleria, which was very pretty. Lots of tourists taking pictures inside, lots of shops. Here's one of the windows. And all dry. I walked out the other side and came to a little plaza with a statue of Leonardo da Vinci, who lived in Milan a lot of his life. And this is La Scala, the famous opera house in Milan. Then I walked all around that area, just taking some scenery photos. This building was interesting, especially this part, the statue. I don't know if you can see the middle finger. And then I went to this church and toured it. They had a couple of sarcophagus. This is a statue of John the Baptist's decapitated head. And then this little convent had different sides for the male and female convent members. Males weren't convent members, but they were just coming to the churches. I can't remember if that's the outside, if that's a different church. And then I went over to the gardens that are around the Castello Sforzesco. It was very pretty there. I walked by a museum and then came down here and did a tour. It was late in the day and rain was threatening, but I'd already done a lot and I needed to do even more. And this is a museum, some armaments and various carvings. The grounds were very nice, kind of crowded. And then this was a special museum just for the Michelangelo Pietà, which is one of his later works. It wasn't really finished in a way. He roughed it out. After that, I walked back. And as I was walking back out to dinner, then I went by the Scala again at evening and saw the crowds gathering, and then the Duomo in the dusk, which was very pretty. That was on the run in the morning, and then I did the stairs tour, started there and walked up many stairs to the outside of the Duomo roof and all the various arches and statues. It's absolutely fantastic. It creeped me out how many of the tall statues were sticking up all by themselves, and it made me have a fear of heights to be one of the statues standing up there. Each one is different, and almost all of the decorations are different. Each one of those little things sticking up is different. All of these big towers sticking out all over. I loved it. It's so complicated. It took many centuries for them to build it all. I don't know how they got the statues up to the top. It's all marble, harvested from a marble mine or site about 50 kilometers away and floated down barges. This is the roof outside, and a lot of views from the roof. Still kind of cloudy, but not a bad day. And lots of interesting perspectives from the statues looking out on the town. Some interesting buildings. That's the Museum of the Duomo over there. I kept taking pictures of all the different angles. It was very appealing to my eyes. Then I was inside. We had to walk down, go inside the cathedral. They were just getting ready for Mass, but it was relatively quiet at this time. Very pretty inside. Statues, a huge organ, and then the great hall with apse and the nave. Not that many people at Mass. They're playing kind of an organ prelude with some chanting. Then it was back outside, a couple of close views of front, and then the piazza again, and the Galleria again. A couple more shots from outside. You'd never get tired of looking at this building. And then I went to the Duomo Museum, which was included in the ticket. It was very nice. Lots of stuff explaining the Duomo and nice views. Inside, that's a 1,000-year-old fresco, and then these are all the statues that they didn't use. And elaborate wooden carving of the Duomo. This is a crypt that was nearby, San Sepolcro. That's him praying, and some of the frescoes in there are also over 1,000 years old. This is a Biblioteca Pinacoteca, and they had Leonardo da Vinci's Codex there, and then this is another museum that was speaking about inequality. And then my host told me to go out to the canals, which was very nice after I ate dinner. And then I walked by the Duomo at night to see the statue of Mary on the roof. The next day I took a train to Brescia and then a bus up to Lake Garda. It took a very long time, 6.5 hours from start to finish of my journey. And there were lots of tunnels and very pretty views of the lake as you traveled up the west side. These are kind of like Finger Lakes. They're carved out by the glaciers, and this is the town at the top of the lake, at the northern end of the lake. It's a very windy day, so the lake was rough, but very pretty town. Much bigger than I thought it would be. And the waterfront was very nice. Lots of little islands connected by bridges and paths. Lots of places to walk, gardens, and beautiful views of the cliffs as they come out of the lake. This is the old town. This building, I think, was 1,000 years old. And some of the other places, this is the harbor part. And then the old town itself with the cobblestone streets and the narrow walkways. Lots of restaurants and shops there. This is my morning run on Tuesday, and I went along the water from right by my hotel and across to the towns of Arco and beyond, all along the waterfront, and pretty much all walking paths or cycling paths and bridges to get there. Then in that late morning, I went on a hike up to a place called the Bastioni, which overlooks the town. It's an old tower that was probably a guardhouse, which is right there, and then you could go inside and walk around. From above there was a bunch of trails that went out, and it would have been a nice place to spend a few days hiking. But I didn't have a few days. I had to get back because today was also canyoning. I walked back through town. I couldn't really find a place to eat lunch, and so I just ate some energy bars before I went out. Canyoning. It was still a very pretty day, as you can tell. So this is me partly assembled in my gear, and then that's completely kitted out with the team, which is 4 of us. There's a couple from the Netherlands and an Italian girl. We rappelled down that waterfall, and you can see the guide up there. He jumped from there just right after the picture. We had to jump from this place. Some of the women went down on the rope, and then these are just various views as we worked our way down. Some of the pictures from me and some of the pictures from the guide. There were a couple places where some of the women rappelled and we jumped. The highest jump was about 8 meters. This is various views, and in some places almost a slot canyon. Then we went kayaking, or I went kayaking Wednesday morning, bright and early, and the kayak was very uncomfortable. My back still hurts where I was having to lean against the seat, but there are lots of nice windsurfers and kiteboarders and all kinds of things out in the water, and sailboats as I paddled around. It was very pretty but very uncomfortable, and I only made it about an hour. That was one of the bridges that I ran across. Then in the afternoon, I walked down towards the end of town and then took some pictures of the old fort there, and then did a trail that goes up into the hills with a bunch of other forts and remnants of forts up there. It's kind of pretty, but pretty rough, lots of stairs, and you'll see kind of the same views over and over again as I climb higher and higher up. I think the vertical is 1,000 to 1,100 feet, something like that, that I covered in about the first hour. And beautiful views of the town next door, Arco, which goes back, very big climbing community there, and lots of climbing tourists on the rock walls north of Arco. And lots of views down the lake. Very, very pretty, the whole place. Eventually, I headed down in a very dense forest. Sometimes it was so dark you barely see. And then I came out into the sunlight here, just north of town, and walked back in, had lunch, and got my train tickets. Thursday morning, I had to get up early to go for the Via Feratta. I had to walk over there about a little over a mile, and then we took the ride out. It wasn't that far. This is a little rope bridge we went across. There's lots of obstacles and mostly horizontal, but occasional vertical climbs. We climbed up through a cave vertically and went all along this canyon. So it was kind of canyoning, but above the canyon. Occasionally we did get our feet wet, but otherwise we were just working our way. There's 5 of us and the guide, who was very nice, Diego. This is almost like a slot canyon again. A nice waterfall. I didn't shoot a whole lot of videos on this trip. You see still photos of the same spot. Very pretty, very quiet. There weren't other people around, which is also very nice. We kept working our way up. It never was very hard, and then at the top we came out to this nice view of this old fort up on the hill, and mostly vineyards up there. And then we walked down the road, which is also very scenic. These mountains are the lower end of the Dolomites. The proper Dolomites are just past those to the north. You can barely see them right about now, that direction. Then I caught a bus to the train to Verona, and got there by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Checked into my little hotel and went out for a walk right away. And there's a scenic overlook right near there that I climbed up. Beautiful city. I really thought the bridges defined it, and the little peninsula that most of the old city is on is absolutely spectacular. You can see the roof colors and towers of the various churches. Lots of old buildings. I went on a walk to try to find another scenic overlook, and I never did. And then I went down to the river level, which was very pretty as well. The sun was out the east, and then I went on the Ponte Pietro, which is probably the most famous bridge there, and into the old city. This is a church that was right near there. The sun was nice on, and I was walking along the river mostly. You can see all the detritus against the river arch there, and then came to the Castle Vecchio, which has a museum and a nice old bridge over it. I walked across there, and then all around town. I walked and walked until I finally ate dinner. And you'll see that right here in this nice area around a square by the arena. I can't remember what that building is. I think it's a government building. And then the arena was beautiful at the night. The streets are also very nice. I had a great walk around and a nice big dinner. There's some beautiful statues all over the city and some nice piazzas. And then finally went back and went to bed. I got up early and went running. Had a beautiful run, and then had to take my luggage to the train station, and on the way back stopped by the arena. I tried to get tickets, but you couldn't get them online. They were all sold out. I could have waited in a queue, but I didn't feel like doing it. So then I walked around the arena, took some shots, and then all around the arena. And then nearby there is the Casa Giulietta, which is the legendary home that they say Shakespeare was inspired by for Juliet and Romeo, or Romeo and Juliet. And that's apparently the balcony just there. I didn't want to fight the crowds to go in and look any further. And you could go inside and tour the fake house. But I went up instead and found this nice path which took me by a statue of Dante. And now I'm inside the Maffei Museum. And then after that, I walked by that archaeological dig and then along the river down to the Natural History Museum, which is the end of the tour. Thanks for watching.